The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers. I'm your host, presented to you by BAMSI in Brockton, a human service agency serving about 55,000 people. And we are, I think, today having a very prescient conversation, a conversation that pretty much everybody in the country is talking about this week, and that is what's going on in the country around immigration. We are seeing a great deal of protests that began in LA. And incidentally, on a personal note, my daughter lives in Frogtown in LA, and it's pretty much bedlam out there at the moment in terms of what's going on, in terms of the National Guard being called in. That seems to be popping up in lots of other different places. So I'd just like to begin by introducing our two guests today. And Christiana Odunze, who is our VP of Nursing at BAMSI, is with us for, I don't know how many times you've been on this show, Christiana. You are a regular. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us to have this conversation about a topic that is incredibly incendiary right now. And I would say within the history of this country has always been. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And also we have Scott Halper with us, who is a staff attorney at the South Coast Legal Services. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And so we're going to dig into this a little bit and talk about, well, all of this stuff is happening. And I just want to start with a few statistics as well. But while all of this is happening, while there is this really difficult and tense situation with people who are working in this country, who are not born in this country, I wonder what is happening in our neighborhoods. How is that affecting the work that we do, given that so many people who work in our line of work are actually foreign born, and what are their legal rights, and how is this affecting our neighborhoods? So just immigration by the numbers. It's really interesting when you think about it. There are about 11 million undocumented individuals who are now currently residing in the United States of America, and that's actually separate from the 43 million people who work in this country who are here on a green card or have taken citizenship. That's a large number of people. It is actually a reflection, if you ask me, of the idea of America. You know, I'm from Britain, which is a pretty multicultural society, but it's taken a long time to get there. There's been generations and generations of folks who have actually marauded all over the world, exporting culture to other countries. But here's America, you know, who's a couple of hundred years old, that has been made on the back of people coming from other places. So it really is a cultural norm within this country, 340 million people. And you look at those numbers, and those are big numbers. Immigration has always been a hot button issue, especially for the Republicans. And there are issues that really, really turn people against each other oftentimes. I would say women's reproductive rights are one of those things, and immigration is another. And right now, we are really struggling with what is going on in this country. So looking at those numbers, Christiana, I'd like to start with you, because at BAMSI, we are an organization that relies really heavily on people coming from other countries to work with us. I did orientation probably a week ago, and about 70% of the people in that class were Haitian, right? Now, Haiti has suddenly cropped up on a banned travel list. What would it mean to our little organization if we weren't able to, or if immigration took a turn and what's happening now manifests itself on a larger scale?
Oh, thank you, Peter, for having me. I used to throwing out the numbers. I'm thinking in my head, you know, BAMSI is one of those places. My community, BAMSI as a community, has the Haitian population. It's not just the Haitian population. We have a lot of Africans working there. We're very diverse. And this is, I've been with BAMSI for about 15 years, and I think this is one of those times where it's hard to really gauge where people are, but you can sense, you can feel the tension, you can feel the anxiety, the uncertainty. And unfortunately, it's hard to really ask questions about immigration status. I know that BAMSI does a good job making sure that everyone that works for us has the papers they need to work. However, we know that they have families. Mm-hmm. We have mixed families that are there. It's just, I think what I'm seeing amongst friends and family and our workers is just this sense of heightened anxiety, and because of the inconsistencies with the whole everything going on in the country right now. So what I'm looking at is just a group of people who seem very confused and very anxious. So
they come to work every day. And it's a mm-hmm. difficult job. It's a highly stressful job oftentimes. Yeah. And then layered on top of that is this what's going to happen next, which must be absolutely all-consuming. And Scott, I read the other day that the ICE folks were in masks down at Vincenti's, which is for people that don't know, that's the local grocery store that is, which is a Latino a grocery store. And they've been hanging out there looking for people. I don't think they're actually there because they were looking for individuals, but it's almost like a show of force. Scott, what are you hearing from a legal standpoint here? Because we speak a lot about what we can do to protect our colleagues and the people we serve, and what we can't do, and what rights the federal government have when they come into our communities. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, well, first I should also specify I work in benefits advocacy, so a lot of what I'm doing is not directly focused on immigration, but as part of an organization, and we have a subsidiary, the Justice Center, that focuses on immigration. It's something that we're hearing about often, and also, just as people in the community, you're hearing a lot of stories about, ICE cars, people that are, like you said, wearing masks or, in plain clothes. And, that's having real ripple effects, I think, in terms of, there was a term that was going around back in January of quote unquote Hispanic hibernation. Obviously, we have maybe a Haitian hibernation, in our communities, where a lot of people are very worried about going out. You're seeing, I've heard reports that, the schools, that there's, some children are not going to school, and then, some very challenging situations of children whose parents have been picked up and, are now kind of left to fend for themselves. So, there's a lot of different things that are happening. And in terms of the law, a lot of this is just very in flux, but, we continue to monitor it and do what we can.
Yeah, what really interests me about this is there really is a cultural piece to this. There really, this administration are sort of cultural warriors at the moment. I think that's how they see themselves, and and a lot of other people see them as a sort of white supremacist government who is really targeting people and othering people in a way that we haven't seen in such a blatant way before. And we can have a political debate about that. But what I find really interesting is that during the Obama administration, which was granted from, I think, 2009 to 2016, he was actually known as the deporter-in-chief, wasn't he? He managed to deport 2.5 million people. And I don't remember this being a cultural war. And maybe I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't pay attention. But this has been delivered with such verve, with such aggression. I heard the Homeland Security director on the television the other day saying that they were going to rain holy hell on Boston and talking about shock and awe. And the last time I checked, Boston was an American city. In fact, it's a rather important city in the history of America. So we're definitely talking about something that has an additional point to it, which is why these people are coming out in the streets. I'm reminding a little bit of George Floyd, that was I'm not saying it was a permanent turning point, but it was a turning point, wasn't it? Are we seeing the same thing, Christiana, here with the enough is enough around this heavy-handed way of dealing with people?
I think we're seeing a little bit of that, not as much, because that was very blatant. Like you said, that was very emotional. It did not matter where you were from. We could see it and the way it happened. But I think we are seeing a little bit of that. People have their friends and their families, like I said, who are being taken away by this masked man. I agree with you. Obama was able to deport. When you look at the numbers, it's not even. But people did not. There was some consistency on who was being deported. Mm-hmm. They followed the due process of making sure that people had a chance to, go to court, make their case. It's very different here, and I think that's what people are protesting. It's just that you can go on the street. And, there was one young man, 18 years old, that was taken on the street because they thought he was his father, which did not make any sense. Right. And this is a young teenager that was taken away, and he was kept away for almost, I believe, for a few days before he could return to his families. So the difference is that there is so much inconsistency. And then we think about who is being deported here. I think it was last week that we had immigrants from South Africa that were relocated to the United States while we're trying to deport. So that distinction makes it very frustrating for a lot of people. And this, I think this administration has been very inconsistent and making it very difficult for people to understand what the process is.
Yeah, I wonder if that is part of the plan, actually, in some ways, that you create a havoc and you create chaos and you create concern. Jessica, my daughter, sent me yesterday a leaflet that was on the streets of LA, and it was Uncle Sam pointing, saying, "Do your bit for America, help us round up all of these," and they call them illegals, and so encouraging people to call in. Yeah. That, to me, that has a flavor of Europe in the 40s, to be honest with you. But that sort of that idea of sort of riling up people's basis sort of thoughts. One of the things that I think about, Scott, you mentioned this sort of hibernation, people who sort of are retreating into their domains, which, by the way, they're not safe from either, to protect themselves. Meanwhile, children aren't coming to school. So therefore, we're sort of increasing that gap between the haves and the have-nots educationally. We all know that education is the way out of the socioeconomic disadvantage. And so we're sort of creating that, but we're also creating problems, aren't we, certainly in southern states. Vegetables are rotting in the fields. There's nobody there. Even people who have a legal right to work here are not coming to work because they fear what's going to happen. I just wonder if there's going to be an economic backlash here in terms of the people. I mean, the engine room of this country is not the CEOs, from large companies. It's the people that are doing the work in the field. It's the people that are working in residential programs, in hospitals, nurses. I mean, I read this morning that nursing is one of the biggest, the professionals that are the biggest reliance on people from other countries. Yeah. It's going to put people off wanting to come here, right? And then who's going to be looking after us? Scott, what do you think to that?
Yeah, I mean, and to add to that, a lot of the actions that the Trump administration has been taking or trying to take is revoking temporary protected status. And so, there's a conversation about people who are not documented that are working, but these are people that often have work authorization, that are working legally as part of a temporary program. And, they're all around us. It's for a number of countries, and Haiti is one of those. And so, there are a lot of people who have lost their ability to work legally. So, I can imagine that there will be impacts of that in the economy, in all sorts of places, in the Boston, Brockton area included.
Yeah. One of the things that really worries me about, especially somebody who has responsibility, and like you, Christiana, of making sure that we have staff that will actually run our programs. I read the Bureau of Labor Statistics over the last couple of days came out with the fact that there's 4.2% unemployment in this country. Now, economically, the Phelps curve ends at 3%. And this idea that there are 3% of the population who cannot work. So we're dealing with 1.1% sort of rail there. There really aren't people who are going to come, citizens of the United States, who are going to come into these jobs. It just doesn't happen in reality. And so there's a real gap between what the Trump administration is saying about creating jobs for people and the real jobs that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, I think, healthcare is a big one. Yeah. Just what we do. We are so anxious about, like Scott rightly said, the TPS. We have people who have their visas that they need to renew to continue working with us. We already have a number of vacancies. So if we don't have people able to renew their visas and come back to work and able to do, I have friends in the community who are, during this nursing shortages, they started programs that they can do. They were given opportunities to train, and now they're not sure. They're very anxious. A lot of them are not going back. A lot of them are skilled workers who wanted to get into whether it's the nurse aid training. They're very confused. They're not going back because they're not even sure they're going to renew their papers. They're trying to stay away. And people are moving from one place to another. Even people like us who are, American citizens. If you have families who are feeling unsafe, who, again, like mixed families, some people have green cards, some people are American citizens, but you also want to protect them. And so there are things that you have to do just to protect your family. And work is not your priority. So I'm not sure this administration is thinking about those gaps that we have and how much the immigrants and foreign-born, workers fill those gaps. Right. And I think that I'm hoping it doesn't cause a backlash because it's going to impact everyone. I have families who rely on these immigrants to be their caregivers. Yeah. They've been left alone. I get calls like, who's coming in today? They're not sure they're coming back. Yeah. And so the anxiety is all around. It's not just the immigrants, it's also American citizens who are waiting to get services by these immigrants. So.
That's such a good point. It affects everybody. Yep. And, I was thinking, of course, I was, again, rather cheekily thinking that everybody's an immigrant in this country except for the Native Americans who are the original citizens of this country. But Scott, when you look at this, when your legal services folks are looking at this, it must be really difficult for you because when an executive order is passed and when a government uses its resources like this, on the local level, it just seems like there isn't much legal recourse here. I know there's big fights that are going on up in the Supreme Court and things like that. But is there a level of frustration with your folks around how, what are the pathways to help people?
It can make things challenging, certainly. For me, as someone who works on benefits and seeing the ways in which people, because of a change in an executive order, are made ineligible for benefits. You're also just seeing so much back and forth and kind of whiplash in stays of executive orders, stays being lifted, kind of this rapid ascent that's going on through the courts. As lawyers, what we can do is just stay on top of what is the law today and make informed decisions based on that and, try and counsel our clients as best as we can for what to expect and really to prepare for every situation that they can encounter.
Yeah, it's good advice. And I suppose we're at a time in American history that will pass. There will be this, the thing about the United States is that the democracy is incredibly strong. And can withstand an awful lot. There is an awful lot going on at the moment that is divisive, even if you look at blue states and red states and the way in which they're reacting to this issue. But we're most worried about what is going on locally, and we're most worried about the people we care about, those people who are our staff, those people that we serve. And we've got to do all we can to keep that together and make people feel as safe as we can, which is really difficult right now, Christiana, right?
It is difficult. I mean, what we're asking for is just to have some humane policies, create pathways to citizenship, whether it's just, supporting people. What we don't realize is that I remember when I went through citizenship and retaining an attorney alone, the cost of it.
Yeah.
And you think about all the staff that are working, how much they're getting paid, and now they have to retain an attorney, whether it's for themselves or for their families. And it's incredibly expensive. There has to be a way of making it possible for people to obtain this citizenship, because we do need the workers.
We do. We need people
We
in
need
this
people
country.
in this
Absolutely.
country. Yeah, that's what makes America beautiful.
It totally is. And having lived in another country where that has been around for a lot longer, the vibrancy of this culture is way more acceptable anyway for me as somebody who came into that. So, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. And I think we'll probably I'd love for you to come back, and Christiana as well, and sort of see what's going on in a couple of months. But right now, we're just watching carefully, as you said, Scott and Christiana. We are trying our best to protect those people we care about.
Right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody, and see you next time.